So I actually, sorry, Mandisa, I just started I hit the record button. Welcome everybody to today's webinar, Walking the Talk: How to Effectively Diversify Your Group, presented by Mandisa Thomas. She is the president of Black Nonbelievers Incorporated, with member organization of the Secular Coalition for America. A lot of folks during the United Coalition of Reason Needs Assessment this summer said they needed help, advice on how to diversify their groups. And so we're very, very grateful to Mandisa for her time in talking about this topic. So hopefully you'll find it useful and go out there and start diversifying your groups. Just some really, really quick housekeeping. If you are signed into the webinar, you can ask questions in the chat box. We're going to reserve some time at the very end, and Mandisa will be happy to answer those questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it.
Gosh. Thank you very much, Sarah. I am okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you all. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction, and welcome to Walking the Talk: How to Effectively Diversify Non-Believers. Now, ever since I got involved with the community, there has been a recurring question about diversity and being more inclusive. How can groups be more inclusive? How can they reach out to other demographics? But one thing I've noticed is that there has been a disconnect between questions being asked and the actions that are actually taking place. And so hopefully this evening we'll be able to, we'll be able to have some effective solutions as to how we can how you can effectively diversify your group. So to just give some background on myself, I was born and raised in New York City, and I had a secular upbringing, which is pretty unfairly coming from the Black community. Now, there's always been skepticism and a sense of critical thought pertaining to religion, but as far as being openly secular, that has still been and it still is, and has been very few and far in between, or the discussion been hadn't been brought up with many people. In addition to founding Black Nonbelievers in 2011, I was also an event services manager at the Centers for Disease Control's Conference Center from 2008 to March of this year. I also currently serve on the board for American Atheist. And as I just stated, I recently resigned from my job and transitioned into full-time activism. Now, in a short 7 years, sometimes it seems longer, but it's also been pretty quick. I've had the good fortune and opportunity to engage with many people and many organizations in this community. And so I'd like to show a small view of what the secular community looks like. Now, all of these organizations, Black Nonbelievers included, are on a national level. You also have your church and state separation activist organizations. You also have your community building organizations. And in here you see that there are many that focus on specific areas. Now, there may be some slight differences, but as you can see that there is a concerted effort to reach out to groups from various demographics and to try to bring more of them, as well as more content and more events and actions within the community. So the wide range, even with what we see here on the national level, that is, and it's important to note that it is good to support as many of them as you possibly can because we can all use it. So from here, it does look like there's good diversity, that there's a good variety, and there are organizations that are making efforts to be more inclusive. And we also must look at the definition of community because, in addition to it just being a group, it's good to look at us as a community. And so, what are definitions of community? There's a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common goals, attitudes, and interests, a similarity or identity, and joint ownership and liability. So, what this means is you're trying to bring people together who are like minded, but also that there's accountability, that there are things that we are responsible for as a community. There may be some things that some individuals are more responsible for than others, but overall, there should be a team building aspect in order to effectively run the groups and turn them into better communities. Now, here is the problem with the overall secular community. Now, most of the atheist slash secular groups, whether they are on the national and or local levels, are still predominantly white. Not that there is anything wrong with white people, of course. However, what it tends to reinforce is that the perception of atheism is often white and predominantly male. Now, there are more people coming to atheism and non-belief from marginalized communities, but the numbers still don't overly reflect that, as well as attendance with other groups. Also, another problem is that diversity and inclusion tends to be one-time efforts and discussions. During Black History Month, you may invite a Black speaker. You may discuss certain aspects of, of people of color or marginalized communities within your groups. And and also there tends to be a spike in invitations after conventions or conference that feature people of color. But then after a while, the actions tend to drop off, or there may be a sense that, well, we've discussed this one time, maybe this will work. And that is a problem. There's also a huge focus on the issues, but not people. Now that is a concern because there are a lot of issues on the table, very important ones to the secular community. Right, we're still fighting the church and state separation activism. There is now a push to take away trans rights. There's always an attack on reproductive rights, which is something that we absolutely must continue to fight. But when you have people who are coming out of religion and are just looking like minds or people to connect with, hammering those issues to them may be counterintuitive and can also be a turnoff because what has been seen over time is that many organizers and speakers tend to talk at people and not to them. And they're also just talking about the issues and what we should be concerned about instead of just connecting one on one with people and even other organizers to see how they're doing, what it is that they need help, what they need help with, and also how we can continue to work on this together. There's also been a serious tone deafness as to how certain demographics are treated within the community. Now, for example, with Black non-believers, there is often a call for a better diversity and more diversity and be more inclusive, but often on behalf of organizers and other leaders, the default tends to be white people. And also, as of late, there has some very, very serious concerns about some of the people who have been revered in the community and how they have been treating people, women in particular, and how those voices have been silenced. And that is still the case there whenever there is a concern that is brought up about a particular person. Often there is pushback. There's often a sense of, well, why are you attacking this person? You're just, you're being, vindictive. Let's look at solely the evidence. And while that isn't a bad thing, it is a problem when we are talking about how people are treated. And also, that can be discouraging to people, to newcomers in your groups, if you are ignoring or dismissing the challenges that women face, whether it is outside of or within the community, what people of color face, whether it is outside or inside of the community, and as well as a lack of consistency when it comes to addressing these issues. And this is part of the overall concern about what should be done, and it is often a barrier to diversity efforts. So now going to the next page, there are I's in diversity, but it's all about we. Now here are some examples of previous events put on by Black nonbelievers, as well as some other events that we have attended. Now, one thing I've always said is that diversity isn't just about who we are, it's also about what we do. And so we have hosted a variety of events. We've also have attended a variety of events. And they are welcome. We're welcoming to everyone. But our focus is definitely to build that support and community for Blacks who are leaving religion, and to provide that safe space, as well as that space to inform our members of other organizations that we work with and build collaborative efforts. Now, here are some examples of some of our previous events. Our Charlotte group all collaborates with Atheist Alliance Helping the Homeless there in Charlotte. You also have one of our board members, Bria Crutchfield, who is sporting one of our hoodies, along with Cy Babe, that's over here to the left. This was at the American Atheist Convention in Charleston, South Carolina last year in 2017. We also have hosted general meetings, which are very information based. We often host guest speakers. And this picture is of Annie Avery, who is the civil rights era, and as well as a picture from our Thanksgiving potluck from 2015, which will be reviving this year in the Atlanta area. This is for our convention at sea. And if you can see here, there's a wide array of folks in this group. It isn't just Black folks. And again, that again speaks to our openness and our welcome and how we welcome other individuals. And we've also launched a Being Changes Lives campaign, which is social media based. And our members and allies share testimonies about our organization, how they left religion, how they found us, and how we have changed and saved their lives. So we put on and we host a variety, we offer a variety of activities for people to participate in, which has been important to the growth of the organization, which has also contributed to the movement. Now, just some advice here about welcoming spaces, because there have been many who have expressed that the groups that they attend aren't necessarily welcoming, or they tend to be condescending to certain demographics, whether, and most of it is stuff that it is being said that people aren't realizing that they're saying. For example, I was told in Austin recently with the atheist community group there that there was a gentleman years ago who, when a person of color came to their meetings, the first thing they said was, "Oh, we don't get that many black folks here." And so it really was polarizing and tokenizing to the person, which made it very uncomfortable, and they didn't want to come back. So here's what welcoming spaces should be. They should be friendly first and foremost. Make sure you say hi or hello, greet your members, greet new participants, and make know who who everyone is as much as possible. Welcoming spaces should also be supportive. There are some members of groups who aren't out, and we must remember that they don't openly identify as atheists or secular because for various reasons, and we must be understanding of that. We must also be encouraging of members, especially if they have questions and if there are more advice on how to deal with family members, acquaintances, coworkers, friends, etc. Um, Also informative. The spaces should have as much information as possible to offer other members. And resourceful. Resourceful goes beyond literature. It goes beyond finances. Um, it's any type of help that could help that could grow the group as well as the people involved, and it should be consistent. Again, we spoke about one-time conversation, one-time efforts. These actions must become institutional, meaning that they must be done time and time again. Even if you feel like you're something like a broken record, which can happen with us. We are when people need us, and that actions will be repeated, and the good actions will be repeated rather. So, so this is a very so now we get to how to be more effective with diversity. If you are looking to attract more people of color, more young folks, more women, um, so um, do research, understand the issues that pertain to marginalized communities, and do not expect us to be your sole information provider. There is an effort to there should be an effort to, even if you don't know exactly what the communities go through, it's good to understand what they go through, and also that the soul uh, do not put the labor on the person of color to give you all of that information. It is good to ask questions, though, but not to the point where you are burdening the people of color. Do invite more diverse speakers to your group. If you don't know of any, ask for recommendations. If you or you know someone that is connected to a national organization, Do ask for references for speakers. And it doesn't have to be, they don't have to be talking specifically about issues that pertain to diversity. There are many uh, people of color or atheists of color that are very, very capable of talking about church and state separation activism, as well as other issues that pertain to the community. So therefore, they should not only be your source for diversity topics. Do show support for groups for people of color by donating either money or time and resources, and do refrain from offering help not requested specifically. And here's what I mean by that. So many of our organizations need resources and support. Many of the major organizations need them and they receive them. This is no different for groups like Black Nonbelievers and the other groups that were shown in the previous slide. If our groups request either resources or time, um, please do your best to show those, show that support. And if there is a specific ask for a certain type of support, please do refrain from offering another type of help, because you might as well have just not said anything at all. Do be friendly, empathetic, and ask questions. It is good to at least, it never fails that when I speak with a group and we talk about the challenges faced within the Black community, there is often more understanding after these talks are complete. But it is also good. Again, empathy goes a long way, not just for people of color, but also people who are dealing with issues pertaining to trying to deal with family members and friends, and also, excuse me. Yes, ask, but again, do feel free to ask questions, but again, not the burdening kind of questions. And do not use people of color simply as thought experiments. Actively seek involvement and take concerns and suggestions seriously. So more often than not, there are a lot of people within the secular movements and groups that tend to ask questions of, well, what do you think of this issue? Or what do you think of that issue? And that is often, whether you realize it or not, that is actually very condescending to people of color. If that is your only avenue of communication with us, that is a turnoff, and you really will have trouble getting people to come back to your group if all you are doing is inundating them with questions to satisfy a certain level of curiosity or intellectual prowess. There is nothing wrong with having that, but again, just engaging people on a relatable level and not talking above but to them is very, very important. And again, when we tell you what our concerns are and what could be done better, please do take them seriously. Taking them seriously means that you are incorporating these measures consistently, that it isn't just a one-time effort, that there is a genuine approach. There are genuine approaches to trying to reach more people, and that means outreach. You cannot expect for people to just find your groups. You may have to actively seek involvement and seek them out. And if you were apprehensive about reaching out to certain groups, you might just want to take that chance, take that leap, and do it but you can never go wrong with salutations. Hello, how are you? I am from this group, and I was wondering if you were interested in this. More often than not, the community still suffers from what I see as social, social anxiety disorder. And there's often a lot of personalities that get in the way of communicating effectively. Working on hospitality, working on how we communicate with people really will help these diversity and inclusion efforts. And if you think that there might be something that could be considered offensive, please do think about what you say before you say it. Do get some clarification first, and if someone tells you that it is offensive or they aren't interested, then it's okay to back off. But also, you and there are some groups that could be doing everything right, and they still might be having trouble. If you know that you have exhausted or even used every avenue, don't get discouraged. Because for many people of color, this is still very new, and so it will be, it must remain a concentrated effort to reach out to individuals, to reach out to other groups for help and assistance. And I am confident that many of you and within the community will take something away from this and be able to be more to be more effective with your communication, with your diversity and inclusion efforts. It definitely is about putting your money where your mouth is. Do invite other people of color in your groups to become involved and organizers within your groups, um, so that people can see the change. Do take their words and do take their ideas very seriously, so that people can actually see the change and see you walking the talk. It should not be that it's a recurring issue, but unfortunately, maybe for a while, and that's okay because we'll continue to work on it and continue to walk in it. And I thank you very much for this present. Thank you very much for tuning in. And now we have time for questions. There is in this slide is a link to my Patreon, where I often post community building advice, as well as some of my experiences being an activist, being a mother, and just a lot of some anecdotal things that people may find interesting. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support my Patreon, which does support my activism. And if you are friends with me on Facebook, or if you follow Black Nonbelievers, you will be notified and updated of upcoming events, as well as upcoming appearances, either with Black Nonbelievers or with other groups. So please do stay tuned, and please do remain in touch with me. I am just either an email or Facebook inbox or a segment away. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mantisa. Do we have any questions?
And it looks like we have time for questions. No problem. Just start where you feel comfortable.
Okay, first question from Lisa coming up. And I'm just going to read it out for folks who might, listen to this without watching it. The question is, I'm in New Jersey. We have a fairly large humanist group with almost no people of color at all. What is the question, Lisa?
Okay.
I know we should go to the Black communities, but how do I make those connections in the first place?
Okay, so there should be an effort to research which events are taking place in the communities and just simply start by saying hello, introducing yourselves, and participate in their activities. That's a good start. Do not be afraid to talk to people. We are people just like everyone else.
All right, another question. Do you have any more questions, Lisa?
I know that there was also an attempt to bring me up there to the New Jersey area. One of the groups, I think it was the South Jersey Humanists. Um, I'm not sure where people are with that, but if you think it's important to have certain speakers, please do let members know what it would take to bring other speakers there. Um, oh yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Absolutely. Please do feel free to reach out to Mandisa with more questions. Um, I have a question myself for you, Mandisa. I'm wondering, in groups where there are maybe just a few individuals who are people of color, and maybe they're one or one of two or one of three, and the rest of the group is predominantly white. I wonder, is it a good idea or not to have a group ha offer their sort of administrative support and their resources for those individuals if they're interested to start their own, I guess maybe even an affiliate of Black Nonbelievers that's sort of like a subgroup, to kind of attract um, other people of color in the area who might come to a group meeting, see that they're one of only a few other people of color, and then just not come back. And I'm wondering if it's a good tactic to empower people of color within a group who may be, the only one or one of to start their own group. Um, maybe use the group's meetup page, for example, to attract members until there's sort of a critical mass. And maybe you can share how some of the new Black Nonbelievers affiliates start. I always wondered if maybe local groups could provide more support, whether individuals use their meetup page or other things to kind of start a subgroup that can grow from there.
So yes, to answer your question, that absolutely would be a very great resource. One thing about Black Nonbelievers is that we encourage coalition building. We encourage working with other groups. If there is, for example, the Black Nonbelievers of Louisville, the Louisville Atheists and Freethinkers, which is the largest group there in the area, they do host the group's meetup page, and they do provide support for that, in addition to what we would provide. There absolutely should be as much effort as possible that there are if there are a group of, if there's a contingent of people of color within a certain organization and they would feel more comfortable starting a Black Nonbelievers group, to help gain more visibility and provide that safe space, then we absolutely do encourage that. And Black Nonbelievers also has guides for starting an affiliate. We also offer that support for group organizers by, we do provide meetup support if needed. We also provide connections to other local groups, and we also encourage collaborative efforts. So, for example, if Black non-believers can work on a certain event or with another group, then they absolutely should be doing that. It is good to utilize each other as a resource, but not, of course, to tokenize that particular be in group to say, hey, these are, not to just be a showpiece, but to show that there are actual genuine efforts to help increase the visibility and support for the Black atheists who need it. And also to get them more comfortable participating with other groups so that they can see that there are more atheist groups out there, local and national, so that they don't feel as isolated, and also that they can be more informed on the issues that do affect us, and it can show how they are across the board, because church and state separation activism does affect all of us. However, yes, the support for groups in the area to that if they can give it to the folks to start a Black non-believers group, that is absolutely welcome. And if anyone has any more questions about how to do that, I am more than happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you. If there aren't any more questions, we'll end there. Please feel free to reach out to Mandisa. Mandisa, what's the best way to contact you?
So the best way to reach me is through the website of Black Nonbelievers, which is blacknonbelievers.org. You can also reach me at Mandisa at blacknonbelievers.org. That is my email address. I am also available through Facebook and Twitter and Meetup, the Meetup group for Atlanta, which is the flagship group. But anywhere on social media where you can find me and send me a direct message. On Twitter, I am Mandy0904, and I do respond to direct messages there too. But email would definitely be one of the most effective ways, especially if we are going to work on either starting a group or working on an event or project. If you'd like to have me speak with your group, then that's the best way, either through the website at blacknonbelievers.org or directly through email at man@nonbelievers.org.
Great. And also a reminder that you can donate to Black Nonbelievers on blacknonbelievers.org as well. Thank you so much for all this great information, Mandisa, and for being a resource to local groups. I certainly hope folks who are either on this webinar or listening to it after it's recorded will take that advice seriously and take action. So thank you again so much for your time. Thank you for everybody who participated, and have a great evening.
Thank you. You have a great evening too.